And so we're called to follow a well-informed conscience. And so as Catholics, sure, we take in, here's what the official church is teaching, here's what theologians are teaching, etc. And then we make a decision in conscience what we're going to do. And no priest, bishop, pope, next-door neighbor can judge. That's where Pope Francis says, who am I to judge? We never can judge that heart of another person. So that's very, very important. And I'll just give a little example in the area of contraception, artificial contraception. Most polls show that, at least in the Western world, that there's no distinction between Catholics and others when it comes to artificial contraception. Well, I learned in moral theology in the early 1970s that in areas of morality, we know what ideals are, but life is gray, right? You know, our human experiences are often gray. So a Catholic couple, you know, looking at the issue of contraception would say, well, here's what the church is teaching. Here's what the doctors are telling us. Here's what psychology is. You take everything into account, and you know, couples conclude, well, for us at this time, to have another child would be unhealthy for all of us. We've tried the rhythm method. That's how we got the last 5 children that we've had. So, so in conscience, you know, they need to make a decision, and no one can judge that. The other interesting teaching of the church that is universal forever, that we don't hear a lot on church banners, is what's called the sensus fidelium, the sense of the people, the sense of the faithful. And the church teaches clearly that any law of the church that is not accepted by the people universally is not a valid law. So you would look at something like artificial contraception, and the sensus fidelium is pretty well made up, you know. And it will change. Just like there's no way in the 21st century that an institution will be able to survive if it continues to deny over half of its people any authority or in the church. So the whole role of women, there's no way that's going to, but how much do we have to suffer before we get there? Documents that came out the documents were very painful, and again, you know, they would say we shouldn't discriminate and we should have pastoral care to the, quote, homosexual, but then, boom, they're intrinsically disordered. That goes right back to what I was talking about with natural law, that this static view of natural law, you know, that it is against natural law to have same-sex actions, because that isn't what nature has called us to. So that's where the term intrinsically disordered. We're not created, there's something wrong, we're intrinsically disordered. But not to feel alone in being intrinsically disordered. The church also teaches anyone who uses artificial birth control is intrinsically disordered. That's this intrinsically disordered act, because it's not following the natural mode of things. Thomas of Aquinas, and again, he was using the biology of his time. Thomas Aquinas taught that adultery, although immoral and sinful, was less sinful than masturbation for a male person, because with the biology of his time, masturbation would have been like abortion, because they thought that the whole embryo of the child was in the sperm, and the woman was just like a greenhouse where the baby would grow. So I don't know, if you find somebody following Catholic standards who isn't intrinsically disordered, I would be happy to meet them. But, so again, it shows that whole area of human sexuality, we just got to, so you see how things change with as medicine changes, history, science, and all of that. The moral bottom line is always evolving and changing as we understand more. If you are pro-life, if you support the right to life, respect for life, then you must be pro-artificial contraception, because all of its biological studies show, along with others, that the population of the world is increasing at such a rate that we're right on the edge of viability, of not being viable anymore. And he's got all the biological studies to show and whatever. And so, again, in history, where contraception and all those things seem so terrible was because before antibiotics, before clean, washing hands, all the hygienics that we know or whatever, for years and years, centuries, the death rate and the birth rate were pretty well even. And so, naturally, communities would teach that having children is very important to keep the human race going, because there was plagues and people would die from all the things we have. So since antibiotics and all that, the global population has just gone skyrocketing. And so therefore, contraception is critical if Mother Earth is going to be able to sustain us. Now, he's written all this in scholarly, but he can't get it in any Catholic magazine, because he'll get the America is a Jesuit review, a very highly respected Jesuit monthly, and the editor said to Andy when he sent in an article on this is the best article I've ever seen on contraception, Andy, but if we print it, you're going to lose your job and I'm going to lose my job. So the vision of Vatican II is not a hierarchy, but a circle, and we're all part of that pie, So we are the church. So I think my attitude has always been, nobody's going to throw me out. I'm just going to stay in this is my church as much as it is Cardinal Ratzinger's or whoever, you know. But that's not making light of what you're saying. So many, you know, and that's just one issue. You know, look at the women that are leaving the church, and what's I think the question came up a couple weeks ago. What I struggle with is why does it have to take so long? You know, like it's like this psychology is clear, Scripture is clear, human experience is clear. Well, let's wake up and say we made a mistake here, like all the other Christian religions have, and